It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wise discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Hello there, South Mississippi. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new week, it's a new month, and it's almost a new year. I'm senior meteorologist Wesley Williams. 2026 is knocking on the door, but we're going to take a 1-month pause before we answer that knock. And this month is going to be a different weather pattern than last month. Last month we had very little to no rain, but it looks like we're turning that on its head as we start the new month of December with a couple of rain systems. And today we're going to track the first of 2 weather systems that are set to roll onto the Mississippi coast. So yeah, wet pattern to start the week. Behind this, some colder air comes in that could set the stage for near freezing temperatures tomorrow night into Wednesday morning. But that's a look at what to expect. Scattered showers, especially during the Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday night time frame. And then tomorrow it dries out, but it will turn breezy and downright chilly, feeling more like January, which is next month, but a little ahead of schedule for that type of temperature as we go to tomorrow. And tomorrow night, again, the potential for near freezing conditions. So here's a look at the rain system that I am tracking for you on this Monday. It's a Gulf low situated near the Texas coast that is developing. That will carry the potential for rain east of it, and that's why you see these zones along the coast. Areas near Texas and Louisiana with some heavier downpours. Areas also near Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia with some heavier downpours at times on Monday as well as on Monday night. Now we can take it to the satellite and first alert radar and track that Gulf low that is continuing to develop off to our west. Technically, it is supported upstairs in the air by a pretty strong low that is swirling. We can actually switch over to water vapor. We'll see if that can load for us. And as that loads in, that's how I will pick out that upper system that is supporting that swirling low at the surface near Texas. So as this data loads in, we'll give it a few more moments. What you're looking at, again, is the water vapor channel on the satellite. It shows where there's atmospheric moisture, which means it's easy for rain to form. It also shows where there's dry air upstairs in the air, and that makes it less or more difficult for rain to form. And we certainly have no shortage of atmospheric moisture along the Gulf Coast region. But you don't really see any swirl there, right? Because the low that's forming near the Texas coast is down. You know, the atmosphere has layers, right? Upstairs, downstairs. Well, the low that's forming near the Texas coast is kind of a downstairs weather feature. And so it doesn't show up very much on this water vapor, which looks mostly at the upstairs weather features. And when we zoom out, we can see that next feature. Again, when I zoom, it's going to make some of the data take a moment to load in. But what I want you to watch is this area back here, because that's where you're going to eventually notice a little bit of a swirl developing in the air. And that is the upper low, the upper trough that is kind of dipping down in the jet stream. And that's what's causing the weather to kind of get kicked up out ahead of it. So you have this upper low that's sitting back here near the Four Corners region. Technically, if you look very closely, I'll make this larger on your screen so you can see. We do have this technical little swirl right there. That is the center of that low. So if I wanted to mark it specifically on our map, I would put the L right there. So that's an upper low. There's also an upper high. You can tell where the lows and highs are because low is where there's counterclockwise wind, counterclockwise circulation, and you have this coming down like this, going up like that. So that's generally counterclockwise. If we were to complete the circulation, it would be a counterclockwise circulation, but we're not going to complete it because it's not really closed off, I think. But opposite that, when you have clockwise wind circulation, that's where you actually find a high, an upper high. And so that is actually way out here in the Gulf. Again, I know there's a low at the surface, but upstairs there's a high there. And so that's coming up like this. It doesn't really have a closed circulation, but the point is between that upper low and that upper high, that's what's really the driving feature of kind of getting this weather pattern to move and be active and do stuff instead of just quiet weather with no rain. We're getting this kind of split flow is what it's called upstairs in the air. Why is it split? Because you can see this flow going up like that, this flow coming east and eventually south like that. So as the flows, if I draw with the line, let's see, if the flows kind of split like this, that is how you get when there's splitting flow aloft. That's called upper level divergence. We're really going into a science lesson here. Upper level divergence, because the winds are diverging, they're splitting upstairs. But that means if they're splitting upstairs, they're leaving kind of a void or a vacuum. And the atmosphere doesn't like that. So it rushes air into that void, it rushes air into that vacuum to fill it. So what happens is you get these rising air, because this is a void upstairs, right? So there's this rising air column. And when you have rising air, that air rushing upwards in the atmosphere to fill that void upstairs, that rising air makes it really easy for rain clouds to develop. That's exactly how rain clouds develop. Rain clouds develop by growing vertically, and if you have these rising air columns in the atmosphere, it makes rain cloud development much easier. And again, remember, the atmosphere doesn't like voids and vacuums, so if you have a rising air column, this leaves a void or a vacuum at the surface downstairs because the air left that area. So in order to fill that void or vacuum at the surface, you have low-level convergence, and that is what a low pressure is. And that's why on that map, if we rewind, that's where that low is sitting in the Gulf on the coast, because it's forming because of that vacuum, that void left by the upper-level divergence, and you're getting the low-level convergence. Super duper science lesson there, probably more than you bargained for on a Monday morning. But in these extended weather discussions, I do have a little bit more time to get into the nitty-gritty details of the gears and the bells and whistles of the weather pattern that we are in. So now that you know all about the why that low is developing along the Gulf Coast, and you know that the flow is going to be pushing any weather toward the east, that's how we're going to get all of these rain showers that are situated along the Texas coast. They are developing this morning because of the processes that I just described. And those rain showers are eventually going to spread toward the north and east as that low itself begins to move toward the north and east. So we can take a look at what that looks like in our futurecast. And we'll start the clock basically at the present time at 8 o'clock this morning. So we see the majority of the rain on this map here. There are some other spots with rain, some out here in the Gulf, some along the Alabama-Florida coast, but the main area of rain to watch is over Texas. Notice the model actually shows very light rain over us. Maybe we get some drizzle, some very light sprinkles this morning, but nothing significant. But I want you to track that area. We're tracking this system as it moves eastward, and watch through time as we go to later today. By noon, most of the rain is still west of us near Texas, Louisiana. We go to 3 p.m., most of the rain is still mainly west of us near Texas and Louisiana, although that other area that was closer to Alabama, Florida, kind of sneaking close to the coast. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Maybe some places near Jackson County might get clipped by some of that. But the main area of rain still Texas, Louisiana. And then we go to later on into the afternoon and evening, and that's when we're really starting to see this rain focusing much closer to us. I still see the bulk of it, Louisiana, but even the Alabama, Florida area is becoming more robust. Again, some breaks in between those where we are. Overnight, though, it's pretty difficult to avoid the rain. It will literally move right on top of us. So we see those rain showers moving on top of us overnight, and then before you know it, they're gone by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon. This is a more zoomed in view of that future cast. So rain chances this morning, again, you see the Alabama, Florida area. That's that green color. The green color showing you where the model thinks there will be rain. And that's primarily over Mobile County, Baldwin County, Alabama. But some of that might come into parts of Jackson County near Pascagoula, Moss Point, Goshen. Then we'll take a look at the middle of the day. Look at that. Look how much more green there is on the map by lunchtime today compared to this morning. So we're really seeing an increase in the development of rain showers across parts of South Mississippi. It might not be very heavy, at least initially. It might just be some light rain if we see it there at all. I think the model might be kind of overdoing it. I am going 40% for the midday rain chance, but it does not stay that way very long. It does pretty quickly roll to 50% or higher. So right now, the model really kind of smacking us hard with a pretty large area of rain. It might not be very heavy rain, might be light, but it is showing up over many parts of the map. And then we go to 6 p.m. and those chances for rain continue to increase. So that's your steady increasing rain chance during the Monday p.m. time frame. We're eventually at 70% as we head to later Monday p.m., perhaps around 8, 9, or 10 p.m. And this continues overnight. So as we head into the overnight hours early Tuesday, there are still going to be some rain showers, scattered rain showers hanging around the area. This means when you hit the roads on Tuesday morning, some of the roads might be wet from that overnight rain, but we are seeing a decrease in the rain chance. So even though the roads are wet, we might start to see the end of actual rainfall tomorrow morning when it's time to hit the road for the morning drive. And then as you see, it's drier and it is going to turn breezy and chillier tomorrow. So quickly walking you through those hour-by-hour rain chances, you see kind of that uptick in rain chance from this morning's 30 to 40% to this afternoon when we go to that 50 to 60% range. And then eventually we go to tonight, and that's going to be your highest chance for rain over the next 24, 48 hours, especially between 9 p.m. and 3 in the morning. Now, when I was looking at the hour-by-hour information, it's very difficult for me to tell which hour would have a 100% chance. If we don't do by the specific hour, I can easily tell you if we have like a 12-hour rain chance. If you ask me, Wesley, yes or no, will it rain somewhere in South Mississippi between 6 p.m. tonight and 6 a.m.? The answer is 100% yes. But if you ask me which specific hour, hey Wesley, will it rain at 10 p.m.? Hey Wesley, will it rain at 2 a.m.? That's when it becomes a little bit more challenging to fine tune and really finally split the hair of will it rain that hour or not, especially in your South Mississippi location. So we can't really go all the way to the 100% as a result, but I would say it's closer to the 70 to 80% range per hour. All right, then we go to tomorrow, starting off the day with those perhaps lingering showers, but then eventually finding drier weather as it becomes breezy and chilly. And this is really going to be a forecast that you want to pay attention to because we have some changes on the way. Look at how you will want to be prepared today with a raincoat or an umbrella. You might also want a sweater because it's not going to be that warm of a day with highs in the lower and middle 60s, if that. And then overnight, we'll see the rain chances eventually wind down. So tomorrow, you don't see any rain there. It will be breezy and chilly. The high temperatures barely getting out of the 50s at all. And look at that, perhaps getting to freezing. That's the last thing we're going to cover in this video, the potential for near freezing temperatures overnight tomorrow night. So that's kind of a look at this should be tomorrow night. I don't know how this one got in here. Let me replace it. That's tonight, if you were wondering. Tonight, the lows are in the 40s, but this is the one I really want to talk about tomorrow night, which the lows drop into the 30s. And for some places along the coast, we're thinking lower 30s. It doesn't last all night. It's basically after midnight, so between midnight and sunrise, which is Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning, you can see a few morning hours there near freezing on the coast. Wednesday morning inland, though, we do have a bit of a longer duration. Perhaps around 1 or 2 in the morning, temperatures drop to near freezing, and they'll stay that way for more than 3 or 4 hours. So while if there's a freeze on the coast, it might only last 2 hours max, if that. The freeze that could develop inland would be colder and would be longer duration. And you can kind of see that difference between places on the coast near I-10 where the temperatures are mainly lower 30s, but then there are other places that are a little bit to the north of that, north of Interstate 10, and the temperatures are basically down to around 30 degrees. This week won't feature freezes every morning, but that is going to kind of be that core of the cold snap. Wednesday morning, you saw the freeze, and you got 3 days here: Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, 3 days in a row with below normal temperatures. That's like 10 degrees below normal. So we're going to go multiple days this week with kind of a January feel to the air. No 60s. After today, if we hit the 60s today, because it could be kind of a tough call, a hard ask with seeing 60s when there's not much sunshine. So the next time we'll get sun, or rather the next time we'll get 60s might not be until Friday, if that. So most of the next 7 days, the first part of December, you don't find any huge warm spells, any huge warm-ups. And you put it all together in your 7-day forecast, and it looks like that. The things that we want to give you the first alert about, there's at least 3 of them. 2 of them involve rain. Your high rain chance tonight, your high rain chance Thursday into Friday. That's the second rain system that we'll see this week. The second thing I want to give you a first alert about is I want to draw your attention to that 34 you see Wednesday morning, which could be 30 on the 30 inland on Wednesday morning, and that could be a light freeze for our area that could harm people, pets, and damage plants that are exposed to those conditions early Wednesday. So something to keep in mind: a light freeze is a possibility by that point in time. And those are the things that we're going to be tracking for you this week. If you got some weekend plans for the first weekend of December, there still do appear to be some rain chances on Saturday, even though they are dropping, but they're not zero. And then by Sunday, it looks like it could be basically as close to a 0% rain chance as you could hope. So if you're already planning for your first weekend of December activities, events, festivities, that's kind of an early first look at the 7-day forecast. Well, that'll pretty much do it for this Monday edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching Waking Up with Wesley with WLOX First Alert Weather Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams.